She walked out of the bedroom wearing the green one. The one she knows I hate. It's not revealing or anything like that. In fact, it's high-necked, long-sleeved, tasteful. But I hate it because it was what she wore the night she, accidentally, called me Liam during dinner. So yeah, that dress is a weapon. Got plans? I asked. My voice cracked halfway through like a teenager. She turned slowly, applying mascara like we weren't even having a conversation. Yeah, she said. Dinner with someone from the gym. I laughed. It wasn't real laughter. Came out sharp like a windshield wiper across dry glass. Is that what we're calling it now? She blinked. Once. Twice. No emotion. I'm not doing this tonight, Gus. And there it was. My name, Gus, said like it tasted bitter in her mouth. I watched her finish getting ready, slipping her phone into her purse like a magician hiding a secret. She didn't say goodbye when she left. Just the sound of her keys, the door clicking shut, and silence that made my ears ring. I sat on the couch, still holding the spoon from the yogurt I never finished. I must have stared at the wall for 20 minutes before I even moved. Then I opened my phone. Not to check on her, not yet. I opened the Notes app. Things I'd say if I wasn't a coward. I know about Liam. You wore that dress on purpose. I hope he orders the wrong wine and makes you feel as invisible as I do. I wish I never learned how to fold your laundry just the way you like it. I didn't send anything. Instead, I sat there and waited. Not for her to come home, I knew better. I waited for that moment of weakness. The one where I'd call her and beg her to lie to me. Nicely, softly, like she used to. But something changed this time. Instead of calling her, I called Liam. And he picked up. Liam answered on the second ring. At first, all I could hear was background noise. Clinking glasses, muffled laughter, some go-doffle lounge music. The kind of sound you hear when someone answers from a bar or a fancy restaurant. I didn't say anything right away. I just listened. Hello? He said, voice smooth, too smooth, like someone who's never had to explain themselves. I was shaking, not with rage. I'm not that guy. I was shaking with something quieter, meaner. That heavy silence that builds in your chest when your suspicions stop being suspicions. Cleared my throat. Is she with you? A pause. Then, who is this? I think you know. I didn't sound confident. I sounded like a man unraveling, slowly, pathetically. Listen, he said, and I could hear the grin in his voice. This isn't really your business. That did it. That broke something in me I didn't even know was holding on. Not just because he confirmed it. Not just because he didn't deny it. But because he sounded like someone who pitied me. And I don't do pity. Not from someone who doesn't know what it's like to spend 2 years helping someone's mother through chemo while they're falling out of love with you in real time. I hung up. I didn't scream or punch a wall. I just sat there, still holding the spoon from earlier, like I was afraid to let go of the last normal object in my hand. And then, I opened the security camera feed from our doorbell. A habit I hadn't even realized I picked up. She hadn't gone to the gym. She hadn't even gotten in her car. She'd walked 2 blocks to the corner of Maple and 3rd and climbed into the passenger seat of a black Tesla. He opened the door for her. Gentlemanly. Disgusting. I rewatched the footage 5 times. Not because I needed more proof, no, I had enough. I just wanted to study her face. She smiled at him in a way I hadn't seen in years. She touched his arm like it was second nature. And when she looked around before getting in the car, it wasn't caution. It was thrill. This wasn't an accident. This was choreography. And I wasn't part of the routine anymore. You want to know the worst part? She was wearing the earrings I gave her for our 3rd anniversary. The ones she said she never wore because they felt too fancy for everyday stuff. I guess Liam counts as fancy. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I made coffee at 3 a.m. and watched the footage again and again. Each time it hurt less. Each time I felt less like a victim and more like a spectator in a game I never knew we were playing. But I wasn't going to let her keep winning. So the next morning, when she walked into the kitchen and asked, "Sleep okay?" like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just demolished the last of my trust with stilettos and lipstick. I smiled. Yeah, I said. I think I'm finally waking up. She looked at me strangely. Maybe she knew. Maybe she felt it in her bones, the shift. The moment the doormat stood up and started shaking off the dirt. I didn't say anything more, because what was coming next? It would hit harder than anything I could ever say out loud. The next day I called in sick. First time in 11 years. My manager didn't even ask why. I guess my voice said enough. Or maybe I've been sounding like this for longer than I realized, and everyone's just too polite to comment on it. She didn't question it either. Just gave me a blank "feel better" over her shoulder while she packed a tote bag with yoga pants and dry shampoo. Said she was going to a class. Then, maybe lunch with Becca. Becca, by the way, moved to Portland in May. I waited until I heard the garage door shut, then sat back down in the kitchen and started writing. Not a letter. Not a plan. A list. List of things I don't know anymore. Whether she likes coffee black or sweetened. Whether she still listens to Phoebe Bridgers when she drives alone. Whether Liam is allergic to dogs like I am. Whether our dog, Mickey, likes him better now. At some point, I opened a drawer and pulled out the old phone. Her old one. The one we didn't get rid of because just in case for emergencies you never know. I powered it down 6 months ago. I turned it back on. It still had the cloud sync logged in. And that was the beginning of something I wasn't prepared for. Because while she had wiped most of the texts and apps, she'd left her notes app untouched. It was all there. Quiet. Tidy. Like a diary she forgot was half open on the table. I didn't mean to read everything, but I did. One note was titled, "Do I love him or just the idea of him?" It wasn't dated, but I knew exactly when she wrote it. It referenced a weekend trip we'd taken to her aunt's lake house. The one where I got food poisoning and spent 2 days curled up next to a space heater watching old Columbo reruns. "I don't think I want to resent someone who tries that hard to make me happy," she wrote. "But I do. I resent the effort. I resent the stability. I resent the calm." And further down, "He won't fight for me. He doesn't even know what he's fighting for. He thinks being dependable is the same as being alive. It's not." I read it twice, then a third time. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry. I felt, and I remember this very clearly, small. Like a piece of furniture in someone else's life. Not broken, just out of place. Decorative. Unnecessary. I spent the rest of the day on the porch with Mickey, who didn't understand any of this but seemed to sense the weight. He sat with his head on my lap, breathing slow and even, like he was trying to anchor me in the present moment. That dog has saved me more times than I'll ever admit. By the time the sun dipped below the neighbor's roof, she still wasn't back. I didn't check the camera. I didn't call. I wasn't ready to know where she really was. Instead, I made her favorite dinner, the one I used to cook when we first started dating. Garlic rosemary chicken, mashed sweet potatoes, balsamic glazed green beans. I lit candles. I plated it nicely. I didn't do it to win her back. I did it because she thinks I don't know how to fight. And maybe I don't. Not in the way she expects. But I know how to haunt someone. Quietly. Slowly. With tenderness sharp enough to leave a scar. She walked in around 9:45 p.m. Hair messy. Lipstick faded. She paused when she saw the table. "You cooked?" she asked. I smiled. "I had the day off." She sat, slowly, like she wasn't sure if this was a trap. We didn't speak while we ate. Just the clinking of forks, the occasional throat clear. Then, halfway through her wine, she said it. "Liam thinks you're pathetic." I nodded once. Then I leaned in and said, "He doesn't know me." And then I pulled my phone from my pocket. I think it's time he did. I didn't message Liam that night. That would have been too easy, too impulsive. And frankly, it would have given him too much satisfaction. Watching me lash out like a hurt little boy looking to swing at the first face he sees. No, I waited. Because that's the thing about people like Liam, they expect explosions. They never see the erosion. The next morning, I was up before her. I made coffee for both of us and left hers by the bathroom sink, just like I used to before all this. She walked out wrapped in a towel, eyes puffy, probably hungover or maybe just soul-tired from pretending to live two lives. She looked surprised. "You're up early," she said. "Didn't hear you get up." I smiled. "Didn't want to wake you." That threw her off. I could tell. For once, I wasn't pouting. I wasn't accusing. I wasn't anything. I was still. And stillness, to someone expecting drama, is terrifying. She left for Pilates. I assume that's what she calls Liam's condo now. I didn't ask. I didn't even glance at her as she walked out the door. But the moment it shut, I opened my laptop and started drafting an email. Not to him. Not to her. To his wife. Yeah. Liam has a wife. Didn't expect that twist. Did you? I found out 3 days ago, buried under a mountain of corporate search results. A blurry engagement announcement from 7 years back, and a tagged photo on his sister's Instagram. Her name is Cynthia, and she teaches 4th grade at a charter school downtown. Her bio still says, dog mom, book nerd, married to my best friend. I drafted the email twice before I found the right tone. It wasn't angry. It wasn't even bitter. It was just clear. "Hi Cynthia, I don't know you, but I think you deserve the truth. My wife Marla has been seeing your husband Liam. I have proof, timestamps, footage, even text logs from a synced cloud account. I'm not reaching out to cause harm, only to give you the full picture. Because I think you, like me, have spent too long living in a version of reality someone else rewrote behind our backs. If you want to talk, I'm here, Gus." I hovered over the send button for maybe 10 minutes. Not because I doubted myself, but because I realized how irreversible this was. Once this was in her inbox, the dam would break. Not just for me, but for someone else. Someone who had no idea what was coming. Then I hit send. And immediately after, I opened a second tab and applied for an apartment across town. Furnished. Month-to-month lease. Nothing fancy, just clean and quiet and mine. I didn't plan to leave right away. That's not how this ends. But I needed the exit marked before I lit the match. She came home late again. I didn't ask where she'd been. Didn't need to. She poured herself a glass of wine and sat across from me on the couch, scrolling through her phone like we were roommates in some polite Cold War. I watched her out of the corner of my eye, the way her thumb hovered, the moment her face went still. I knew exactly when she saw it. The text from Liam. He hadn't called. He'd texted. Of course he did. I couldn't see the screen, but I could read her reaction like subtitles. First confusion, then horror, then panic. She looked up at me, lips parted, like she was about to say something, but I stood before she could. Walked to the kitchen, refilled my glass, returned. Silence. And then I looked her dead in the eye and said, "How's Cynthia doing?" The color left her face so fast it was almost impressive. She didn't deny it, didn't even try. She just sat there, mouth trembling, eyes wide like a trapped animal. For once, she wasn't calculating. She was cornered. "I can explain," she finally said. And even she seemed to realize how stupid it sounded the second it left her mouth. "I hope you do," I said. "But not to me." She blinked. "Then to who?" "To yourself," I said. "Because that's who you've been lying to the most." I left it at that. Didn't storm out. Didn't lecture. I went to bed and left her in the living room with her glass of wine, her unlocked phone, and a brand new mess that had nothing to do with me anymore. Because the thing about Liam is, he thought I was just another weak, whimpering husband. He doesn't realize I've been preparing for this my whole life. People think the aftermath of betrayal is loud. It's not. It's logistical. 2 days after the Cynthia email, I started boxing things. Not in a dramatic, hurling books into cardboard way, no. I became methodical, efficient, robotic. I labeled everything like a librarian running out of time. Kitchen utensils, misc, linens, spares, bathroom and essentials. She asked once, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Inventory." That was it. No more questions. Marla was unraveling in a way she didn't know how to hide. Her makeup got worse, not smudged, but overcompensated. Her routines got louder. Cabinets slammed. Drawers stayed open. Her charger cord started tangling on the counters like spiderwebs. And for a woman once obsessed with minimalism, that was practically a scream. But I didn't yell. I archived, quietly. What she didn't know, what no one knew, was that this wasn't the first time someone left me. It was just the first time I let them stay long enough to think I wouldn't survive it. When I was 23, I was engaged to a girl named Rosalie. She had laugh lines at 19, called me Bug, because I blinked too much when I got nervous. One Tuesday morning, she said she was going to Target for wrapping paper. I never saw her again. No note, no call. Just her keys on the hook and a silence so clean it felt cruel. I never told Marla about Rosalie, partly because it didn't feel relevant. Mostly because I didn't want her to know I was capable of being left twice. But that's what this was. A second Rosalie. Just slower. Just messier. And this time, I wasn't going to let the exit be hers. By Friday, Cynthia responded to my email. I don't know what I expected, maybe denial, maybe fury. But her reply was frightening in its precision. She'd known. Not everything, but enough to feel the cracks. She'd read a single message over Liam's shoulder last month. Just a flash of the word M and a heart emoji. And since then, she'd been cataloging behavior. Late meetings. New underwear. That hollow echo men get when they've already decided they're somewhere else. We exchanged 4 messages. Nothing dramatic. Just mutual witnessing. In one of them, she wrote, "He thought he could have 2 homes. But you and I? We were just scaffolding. Temporary. Replaceable. You know what we call that in my classroom? Poor architecture." That line stayed with me all night. Poor architecture. I laid awake thinking about how many things in my life I'd built on bad blueprints. This marriage included. It wasn't just her cheating. It was me pretending that being good was the same as being loved. I was dependable, loyal, predictable, but I hadn't asked her in years what she actually wanted. I just assumed she wanted me to stay who I'd always been, and I did. She mistook that for stillness. But really, I'd just been pausing. So that Saturday, when she walked in with grocery bags and her tired, fractured smile, I met her halfway. I took one of the bags, set it on the counter, and I said casually, "Liam's wife knows. She might be moving out." Marla didn't even blink. "Did you tell her?" I nodded. "Yep, and I didn't even have to exaggerate." She sat down at the kitchen island, hands folded, like she was preparing for a job interview. "Do you hate me?" she asked. I didn't answer right away. I just looked at her, really looked, for the first time in months, years maybe, and I realized something I hadn't expected. "No," I said, "but I hate the version of me you turned me into." She swallowed. "I didn't ask you to. You didn't have to." I cut in. "You just needed me to stay small enough not to notice." We didn't argue. That was the strangest part. There was no yelling, no demands, just a dense, aching understanding. It was over, even if we didn't know where the lines would fall. She went to bed early. I stayed up and emailed the landlord of the apartment I applied for. Told him I'd take it. I gave myself 1 more week in the house. Not for her, for me. 1 week to pull the last threads from this life I stitched too tightly to a person already walking away. And as I shut the laptop, I realized something else. Liam wasn't the villain in this story. He was just the symptom. Marla started waking up earlier than me. That's how I knew something was shifting. She's never been a morning person, used to grumble if I so much as opened a drawer before 8 a.m. But now, she was dressed before the sun even lit the kitchen windows. Lipstick by 7:15. Hair curled. Phone always face down. She didn't ask me where I was going when I started coming home late. Either. That silence wasn't trust, it was fear. She knew I was leaving. She just didn't know when, or how much of herself I was planning to take with me. The apartment was mine now. Contract signed, keys in hand, lease start set for Monday. I hadn't told her yet. I didn't need to. I let her feel it. Let her notice the way my side of the closet was thinning. How the framed photos had slowly disappeared from the shelves one by one. The space grew emptier while I smiled at her over dinner like nothing had changed. Because now, I wanted her to feel it before it happened. That's what she never gave me, warning. Dignity. A ramp to descend instead of a cliff to fall from. On Wednesday, I came home to find her in the garage, standing in front of my car with a box in her hands. She looked pale. Like she'd found something she wasn't supposed to see. "Gus," she said, and that alone was enough to put me on edge. She hadn't used my name in weeks. I walked over slowly. "You okay?" She held out the box. It was full of things I hadn't packed yet. Old letters, my college sweatshirt, a framed photo of me and my dad from years ago, stuff from the attic, stuff I hadn't touched in ages. "Were you going to leave without saying anything?" she asked. I met her gaze. "No, I just didn't think you'd notice." That hit. I could see it. She flinched, almost imperceptibly, like I'd thrown something and she didn't want to let me know it landed. She placed the box down carefully and leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. "So that's it? You're just done?" I didn't answer right away. I watched her, not because I wanted to punish her with silence, but because I needed to be sure this wasn't a trap. Marla could be cruel, yes, but she was also tactical. She knew how to cry when she needed something, knew how to fall apart just enough to keep someone from walking out the door. But this wasn't sadness on her face. It was panic. A rare, honest look I hadn't seen since her mother's second surgery. And I realized she wasn't scared of me leaving. She was scared of being alone. "Do you want me to stay?" I asked. She didn't answer. Her face twisted, not in pain but calculation. She was weighing it right there in front of me. Whether keeping me around would be less lonely than losing me entirely. I laughed. Quiet. Bitter. "You still don't know, do you?" "Know what?" "That I would have forgiven you. All of it. If you'd just told me the truth back when it still had a pulse." Her eyes welled up, but I wasn't moved. I'd seen this before. She cried like some people smoked, reflexively to self-soothe. "I never meant to hurt you," she whispered. "That's the line. Always that line. The anthem of the guilty." I nodded slowly. "I believe you. But meaning doesn't matter when you rewrite someone's life behind their back." She reached for me, and for the first time I stepped back. Her hand hung in the air like it didn't recognize the rejection. And then she asked the question I didn't expect. The one that made everything finally snap into focus. "Is there someone else?" The irony almost made me laugh out loud. "No," I said, "but there will be. Someday. And when there is, she'll never have to wonder who I am when she's not looking." I turned to walk inside, but her voice stopped me. Small, shaking. "Please don't make me live here alone." And right then I saw it. Not just the guilt. Not just the fear. The dependence. She'd built a house of glass and I'd been the frame. She didn't love me. She needed me to stabilize the image, to keep the lie running smoothly. I looked over my shoulder. "You already have." Then I went inside, pulled out my laptop, and typed a message I'd written weeks ago but never sent. Not to her. Not to Liam. To a woman I met in a grief support forum after my father passed. Someone who once told me, "The difference between guilt and grief is that guilt can rot you if you don't put it somewhere." Her name is Natalie. We'd exchanged maybe 5 messages over the last year. Nothing romantic. Just raw, honest conversations about memory, regret, and what it feels like to miss someone while they're still alive. This time I typed only 3 words. "I'm finally ready." And for the first time in months, I meant it. The next day, Marla was nice to me. I don't mean polite. I don't mean quietly tolerable. I mean full volume, eye contact, make your favorite pasta nice. She played our song on the kitchen speaker. The one we danced to the night we got the house. And when I walked in, she smiled like nothing had happened. Like the last 3 months had been a stress dream we could both wake from. Together, if we just didn't talk about it too loud. "I figured we could use a restart," she said. She even called me babe. I hadn't heard that word in so long it felt sarcastic coming from her lips. But she meant it, or thought she did. I could tell. The way she nervously tapped her thumb against the wine glass while I ate. The way her voice kept rising at the ends of her sentences, like she was pitching ideas at a focus group instead of speaking to her husband. I played along. Not to be cruel. but because I needed to see where this was going. Because sometimes, when a fire's almost out, it glows the brightest for a moment right before it dies. After dinner, she put on a movie she knew I liked. Something old, something slow. She curled up next to me like it was 2018, like Liam was a theory she'd once entertained and dismissed. And for a moment, just a flicker of one, I wondered if I'd imagined everything. If this was real. If the last few weeks had been some sadistic simulation run by my paranoia. But then she whispered, "You still love me, don't you?" And I knew. That wasn't a question. That was a test. Because Marla doesn't ask to be loved. She assumes it. She builds on it. She weaponizes it. That question meant she no longer trusted the ground she was standing on. She needed me to patch the cracks before they widened. Not for us, but for her. So she wouldn't have to fall through alone. "I'll always care about you," I said. That's all I gave her. She waited, just long enough to realize that was the whole answer. Then she nodded, looked back at the screen, and didn't say another word the rest of the night. After she went to bed, I stood in the hallway for a long time, just looking at the photos, the furniture, the rug we argued about for weeks before finally compromising on a pattern we both sort of hated. This wasn't a home anymore. It was a museum of a marriage that never fully became what it pretended to be. And I knew then that the real tragedy wasn't what Marla did. It was what I didn't. I didn't fight for her when I should have. I didn't ask the hard questions. I didn't say the things that scared me. I built a perfect structure around her and called it love, hoping she'd stay inside it long enough to convince herself she was happy. I didn't give her freedom. I gave her comfort, and she resented me for it. The next morning, I packed my car. Quietly, deliberately. She was still asleep, or pretending to be. I didn't check. I left her a letter. Not long. Just enough. "You were right. I didn't fight. But maybe that's because you were never in the ring with me to begin with. You left a long time ago. I'm just finally catching up." Gus. I dropped the keys on the counter. One last glance. One last breath. And I walked out the door. As I drove, I didn't cry. I didn't play music. I didn't even call Natalie. I just drove. Somewhere between our exit and the downtown skyline, the sun cracked through the clouds and lit up the windshield like a spotlight. I blinked into it, smiling for the first time in what felt like centuries. Not because I felt free, but because I had no idea what came next. And for once, that didn't scare me. The apartment had a yellow door. That was the first thing I noticed when I pulled up. Not the chipped paint or the crooked mailbox or the fact that it sat directly above a florist shop that made the whole building smell like damp soil and tulips. Just the door. Bright. Unapologetic. It looked like it belonged to someone who wasn't afraid to be seen. I sat in my car for a full 10 minutes before going in. Not because I was nervous, but because I'd never actually done something just for myself before. Not really. Every move I'd made in the last decade had been about maintaining something, a marriage, a career, a reputation. This was the first time in years I was choosing forward over fixing. Inside, it was smaller than the photos. One bedroom, crooked blinds, a fridge that hummed like it was trying to stay alive. But it was clean, and empty in a way that didn't scare me. I put down the one duffel bag I'd brought and stood there for a moment, listening to the unfamiliar silence. It didn't echo. It absorbed. I unpacked slowly. No urgency. Just motion. The kind that keeps your hands busy while your mind catches up to your body. I didn't bring many things. A few books, a mug Marla never liked, the photo of me and my dad, and Mickey's leash. He'd be staying with me on weekends, at least for now. The divorce was mutual. Clean. We agreed on everything in record time. Marla was surprisingly quiet through it all. Not cold. Just exhausted. I think she finally understood what she'd done. Not the betrayal. The emptiness that came after. And when there was no one left to blame, she had to sit in it alone. And as for Liam, Cynthia left him. Moved back to Boston. She sent me a message last week. A single sentence. "Thank you for telling me the truth when no one else would." I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Some closures don't come with conversations. Just peace. And then there was Natalie. We met for coffee the day after I moved in. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't awkward. It was just quiet. She wore a gray coat with a rip in the sleeve and drank her tea like it was an apology. I told her everything. Not in one breath, but over 2 hours, with long pauses and a few almost tears. She listened without flinching, didn't try to fix me, didn't offer advice. She just said, "You stayed too long in someone else's story. I'm glad you're writing your own now." We met again the next week, and the next, and somewhere between the third and fourth time I laughed. Really laughed. One of those ugly, gut-deep laughs that leaves you red-faced and wheezing. She laughed too. And just like that, I remembered who I used to be before all the pretending. Before the compromise. Before I mistook survival for love. This morning, I woke up with the window open and sunlight crawling across the floor like it belonged there. Mickey was snoring by the radiator. The florist downstairs was playing jazz through their back door again. I made coffee in silence, then stood by the yellow door and just listened. Not for her. Not for footsteps or engines or apologies that would never come. I listened to my own heartbeat, steady, present, alive. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. Because I'd already taken it off, walked away barefoot, and found something better on the other side.